Hoping to be outside, and of course, with the weather pattern, we're unable to. I wanted to make sure that you had a thorough and comprehensive update from the city of New Orleans. And so we do have quite a few speakers this afternoon, because this is a very important time, as you know, in the city of New Orleans. Everyone, we do have appropriate hand sanitizer here that is available as we move through speakers. We will have, of course, Dr. Jennifer Avegno, who is our Director of the Health Department for the City of New Orleans. You will also hear from our Superintendent of the New Orleans Public Schools, Dr. Henderson Lewis. You'll hear from Winston Reed, who serves as our Director of Code Enforcement for the City of New Orleans and has been solely responsible for coordinating a task force as it relates to enforcement of the mandates that are in place by the City of New Orleans. A real unified command in that regard. You'll also hear from Deputy Superintendent John Thomas, who is joining us this afternoon, of course, representing our New Orleans Police Department. You'll hear from Superintendent Tim McConnell with our New Orleans Fire Department, and also joined by the President of the New Orleans City Council, Jason Williams, Councilman Williams, who is with us. I've asked also Colin Arnold, who is our Director of Homeland Security, to speak on weather patterns that we are expecting to change, as he was recently just informed by the National Weather Service. So with that, what I want to do is, we're heading into another holiday weekend in the midst of this pandemic. Yesterday, the City of New Orleans, in terms of our caseload, and Dr. Avegno will dig a little bit deeper into this, 68 new cases in our city, and an upward of 2,083 more in the state of Louisiana. As of today, 7,960 positive cases, still standing at 534 deaths in the city of New Orleans. The deaths that we've experienced, again, in a very short period of time, cannot be undervalued at all. At the end of the day, this is what our response is to this pandemic. It is between life and death. The 534 residents that I often think about, and I don't pull out my list often, but where we are in the city of New Orleans at this time, and with this being, meaning how we respond to the existing conditions in our city, will continue to determine how well we do. This is serious. And so while we are seeing an uptick in cases, we're still better than the rest of the state of Louisiana. However, we could easily go back into community spread. We were there before, of course, with public, you all following the guidelines. We were able to flatten that curve, reduce it at a rate of 94%. But with an uptick, we can easily go back. If we do, within the next week or so, I will be prepared to make additional restrictions as it relates to the relaxation that we provided through phase 2. Those will be centered around gatherings, large gatherings. Right now, it's mandated at 100, but we will have to make adjustments again if needed. Also, as it relates to activity in bars, clearly associated with the uptick in cases, as well as the clustering that has been identified. And that has been identified through effective contact tracing. Improvements need to happen there, but what we know is that we can use the facts, and we've been able to trace people in terms of where they contracted the virus. And so with that, contact tracing is only as effective, again, short, limited time, because if we move into community spread, contact tracing means absolutely nothing. It means that we will have to, again, go back and we do not want to go back. And that is clear also from the public. People want to continue to see progress. And that is a unified message that I'm hearing from the public. People want to continue to see progress. But there'll be no progress if we continue to not follow the guidelines in this city. What we experienced last week cannot be as it relates to this week. It cannot be. And also I want to remind our public and those who were in that video pop-up second lines. Now I know that many of our families who were there, you saw adults, you saw children. And I can say that the majority, I know, are students affiliated with the New Orleans Public Schools. So our actions right now, over the weekend, as we move into the next week, will have an immediate impact on whether or not our kids are back in school that first week in August. On yesterday, you heard from our New Orleans Public Schools, the leadership, announcing a very comprehensive plan to reopen schools, again, that first week in August. There is no guarantee because it all depends on how we abide by the mandates outlined by the city of New Orleans. Cannot overstate that enough. In addition to that, we know that our kids need to be back in school, particularly our young ones. They need to be on-site instruction and also creating a healthy environment for instructional leadership that comes from our teachers, who are very much concerned as well. So, tying it to, again, let's think about our children when we think about our actions this weekend and beyond. There have been over 170 reported large gatherings since we entered into phase 2. Over 3,100 now since we had our first case. We're on the ground, we're enforcing, we're doubling down on our efforts, and you'll hear a little bit more about that. Masks, they are mandatory in Orleans Parish. They are mandatory in Orleans Parish. I want to thank the businesses who have been abiding by the guidelines. I also want to thank a couple of businesses that I had to highlight to turn things around and very quickly, whether that was Walmart or whether that was Rouse's and others. They responded with action. Closure was not necessary because they responded, and therefore creating a healthy environment for their employees, a healthier environment, again, for customers. We want to commend them for their efforts, and we need to see more of this going. I also want to give a little shout out, to our bar community. There were some big concerns as it related to last week. They, again, doubled down on their efforts to hold themselves accountable, putting in proper protocols and procedures for their customers and employees to follow. We did, again, see more compliance. We need more of that as we move into the 4th of July weekend. Also, this is a very serious moment in time in this city. And we have proven that we can face this pandemic in the eyes, standing eye to eye, and also get the results that we need on the ground. But we cannot go back. But it all depends on personal responsibility. And again, people following the rules and taking this very seriously. So with that, I'm going to ask Dr. Jennifer Vecno to come forward to give you more information, and we'll move through this press conference. And always we finish with questions and answers, to therefore dig a little bit deeper also about what's on your mind or the questions that you may give as a response to what you're hearing this afternoon. So with that, Dr. Vecno.
That looks bad.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, everybody. I want to start by saying that today I am more concerned than I have been in several months. The data trends that we're seeing in New Orleans are concerning, In the region and in the state even more so. And in our neighboring states, they are downright alarming, as many of you are aware. Today, our average daily new cases rose above 50 for the first time since April 25th, when we were in a stay-at-home order. And if you remember, 50 was one of our milestones that we needed to keep cases below. Over the last 2 weeks, our average of new cases per day has doubled. Our rate of positive tests is going up, so this is not just a function of our highly robust expanded testing program. These are not isolated nursing home or high-risk facility increases. Over 90% of what we're seeing at the state level, and that applies to the region as well, are coming from community spread. And again, as the mayor said, from what we know from the contact tracing process, uncontrolled social gatherings continue to drive the spikes in cases. And furthermore, as alarming, the rate of transmission of the virus, the R0 that we talk about in Orleans Parish, is now greater than 1. What that indicates, as I think you've heard me say, is that we have the potential for exponential spread of the virus. So these are all signs that the virus is spreading at a dangerous pace that could put us back on track to increase hospitalizations and increase deaths. I don't have to remind anybody of the pain and sacrifice that we've been through as a community. As the mayor said, losing over 500 of our residents and bearing the economic impact of a stay-at-home order. Nobody wants to do that again. Early on, we went from the most hard-hit place outside of New York, most likely, to the one that was the biggest success story and the most able to bring our rates down so quickly. That took a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice, which we have to sustain for the foreseeable future. You've all probably heard or used the term, this is the new normal, and that's a phrase that evolves. Remember what our new normal looked like at the end of March and compare it to today's new normal. It's a lot better, but if we can't get it right, we have to go back to the March new normal. So I'm asking everyone, particularly young people, those under 30, to take this seriously and prevent the spread. Wear your mask. Physical distance, at least 6 feet apart. Wash your hands and avoid large, uncontrolled gatherings. It is a myth that young people can't get seriously ill. While most of them so far have relatively mild disease, that's not true for all of them, and we don't know the long-term effects of having COVID on a young person or anyone else. In fact, we're starting to see in our hospital data an increasing percentage of our hospitalizations coming from young people. The last thing I want to let everyone know is that we're beginning to see some national supply chain issues related to testing. Trying to understand why this is not clear yet. It's very likely tied to the fact that other states are needing to ramp up their testing to a level that they really haven't been doing. This is something happening throughout the country, and it may impact our community-based testing sites. To prepare for this and to weather it, next week we'll be limiting our testing to 150 per day at our site. That's something that's disappointing to me because the demand for testing is higher than it's ever been. Our sites are reaching their max quickly this week, sometimes within an hour. We may have 100 people in line before we even open. That's fantastic, and I want to preserve that as much as possible. I'm encouraged by how many people are coming out to get tested, but that's not an excuse for acting irresponsibly, right? You can't go to a big gathering on Saturday and then wake up feeling guilty and want to go get a test, right? Avoid the gathering. We're working through this, and we have great help from our partners and our federal delegation to hopefully resolve these issues to get back up to full capacity, but it is going to be an issue for at least the next week. And again, please take every precaution possible to limit the spread of this continued deadly disease. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vagno, and Dr. Henderson-Lewis. Thank you for being with us.
Again, thank you, Mayor, and also Dr. Vagno.
For those of us who live in the city, we all know that the past few months have been unlike any other. COVID-19 has devastated the health of our community, forcing our students and teachers out of school buildings and into remote learning environments, and turning our parents into teacher aides overnight. I want to start off this evening by, first of all, just thanking the leadership of our school board, NOLA Public School staff, leaders and educators who worked and came together quickly to pivot to remote learning in a very short period of time this spring. During this unprecedented time, you stepped up, you worked day and night to make sure that our students continue to learn and grow the last 9 weeks of the school year. It's your efforts that we are greatly appreciated at this time. As a father and an educator, I know how important it is for our students and our teachers to return back to school this fall in a very safe way. Schools are special, dynamic places and are critical to the growth and the development of our young people. And for more than our 45,000 students who attend NOLA Public Schools every year, we are committed to provide a safe return as soon as possible to in-person learning this August. And we heard from our mayor, we heard from Dr. Avegno, a lot depends on what's happening right now if we'll be able to do that. And this is why we've been working hard as a school system to develop a roadmap for NOLA Public Schools, and it was released on yesterday. After months of listening to our community members and NOLA Public Schools Reopening Task Force and Advisory Council, and analyzing the findings from our community stakeholder survey, and following the guidelines from local, state, and federal authorities, our roadmap seeks to address 4 areas: the health and safety of our students, staff, and families. We want to maximize in-person student learning, provide flexibility to meet the varied needs of our families, and finally, create citywide consistency in standards and in expectations. As a school system, we have prioritized in-person learning whenever possible, especially for our youngest learners in pre-K through 4th grade. For our older students, we will have a blended learning environment of in-person instruction as well as distance learning. And this will depend on the capacity of our individual school buildings. However, in all these scenarios, the health and safety of our students and our valued teachers and staff will be prioritized. To do this, we employ a number of safety precautions, including frequent washing hands, temperature checks upon entering our school buildings, enhanced cleaning of our classroom facilities and buses, and requiring face coverings for all students and staff. Any family who does not feel comfortable returning to school for in-person learning will have the option to learn from home on a quarterly basis. Our educators who were on the front lines this spring and will once again be on the front line in August are essential to helping our community move forward in the face of this crisis, and we are committed to doing all we can do to support them for this upcoming school year. Together as a community, we must work to mitigate risks to our students and teachers ahead of a return to school buildings. Wearing face masks isn't just about keeping the person who's wearing it safe, it's about keeping our entire community safe, especially those who are older and immune compromised. From students to teachers to staff and their families, we are all made safer if everyone wears face coverings. We know that the return to school in this new normal will not be easy, and we will take the entire community working together, and I will say that this work must begin today. To return our students to school buildings in August, our entire community must continue to take safety precautions that will not only safeguard themselves against contacting the virus, but prevent the potential spread to people they come in contact with. So as we head into the 4th of July weekend, I know a lot of us, including myself, will want to spend time with family and friends, particularly after being indoors without contact for months. Remaining socially distant, wearing face coverings, and frequently washing your hands this weekend will help ensure that our students can safely return to school next month. So on behalf of the 45,000 students and over 5,000 educators and support professionals around this great city, I am asking for your help. Together, I know that we can do this. We have done it before, and now it is time to do it again. Thank you, and remain safe.
Thank you so much, Dr. Henderson Lewis. And listening and hearing that 45,000 students, and you adding in the families, parents that are associated, this is a big deal.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Look towards enforcement and our director. Come on, Winston. Mr. Winston Reed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for your leadership to the team. First of all, I'd like to thank our state partners with the Louisiana Alcohol Tobacco Control Agency, the Louisiana State Fire Marshal's Office, the Louisiana Health Department of Inspections Division. These partners have really stepped up. They're allowing us to have support that will provide a wider level of coverage and support. I want to repeat that. They are going to give us that added support on the street. As Mayor knows, I often say, boots on the ground. We plan to address those issues. If we come about it here and we, through our complaint system that we receive so often, numerous complaints of unpermitted activities and events such as pop-up second lines, social activities where you exceed the threshold of the COVID guidelines and the mayor's proclamations. If you're renting rental housing, short-term rentals for the purposes of throwing parties, I want to be clear. The mayor's giving us direction. We're no longer to be passive. We have exceeded and we have crossed the line of being courteous, if you will. The courtesy notice is over with. We plan to take quick and swift action. The time is up. This team will be performing operations in shifts to provide that coverage. We will have morning shifts. We will address venues, food venues, markets, box stores, bars. Anything that comes through our 311 complaint system. We now have the manpower and the boots on the ground to deal with that. So I want to be clear. If you think that you're gonna just not abide and adhere to the COVID guidelines and proclamations that the governor and the mayor set forth, and you think at 2 o'clock in the morning no one's out there, I'm telling you, we're gonna be out there. So with that, we want you to have a safe, enjoyable weekend, but we want you to be responsible. And if not, we're here to assist you with education, but also with very swift action. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much. Speaking my language. All right now, Chief Thomas.
Good afternoon to the media, and thank y'all for bringing this to our community. It's a very important message. Thank y'all so much. For those who can't get out, thank y'all for bringing this to our community. We are facing the 4th of July holiday weekend unlike anything we've seen in the midst of this pandemic. Even with our official celebration, we know many people will be out and about. NOPD will continue to disperse large crowds and make sure that people are in compliance with the social distancing and the mandate of wearing their mask. There are no event-related traffic restrictions to speak of this weekend. However, please wear your seatbelts and please wear big. Do not drink and drive. If you're celebrating this weekend, please remember that the purchasing and firing off fireworks is illegal, and we will be enforcing it. We haven't had this issue in a long time, but as a reminder, please do not fire any firearms to the ground or into the air. We will also be enforcing that ordinance as well. So again, we know this holiday weekend, like many this year, will be celebrated differently. Please wear your mask, keep your distance, and please be safe and have a happy Independence Day. The mayor has given us, he created a task force. We will be out with Mr. Winston. We have a complete task force. We'll be enforcing the gathering, and we'll be out there issuing summons to those who deserve it. We have been given warnings all last weekend. It's about the businesses creating an environment where we have to be safe. Dr. Regno has spoke. Mr. Henderson has spoke. We have to get ahead of this curve. We're losing people unnecessarily. And it's our friends, it's our co-workers, it's our children, and it's our parents. So I beg the community, please, let's get this right. We're losing too many people unnecessarily. And thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you so much. And we'll follow by Chief McConnell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank everyone for coming out and helping us spread the message of safety in our community. You've heard everyone speak about it ahead of me. I'm going to speak a little bit on fireworks and some fire safety. Fireworks represent a hallmark of the 4th of July celebration, but consumer fireworks are extremely dangerous, causing thousands of injuries and fires each year. The New Orleans Fire Department would like to remind everyone, as Chief Thomas said, that first and foremost, discharging of consumer fireworks in Orleans Parish is illegal. That's why the New Orleans Fire Department, along with Mayor Cantrell and our partners at the State Fire Marshal, are urging residents to treat all fireworks as suitable for use only by trained and licensed experts, instead of risking one's property and health and life. Each year, during 4th of July season, we see tragic accidents and fires caused by consumer fireworks. Even sparklers, which are often thought of as harmless enough for children to hold, burn at 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 50% hotter than what's needed to burn wood. We held a press conference earlier today at University Medical Center with doctors in the burn unit. Dr. Jeff Carter talked about the types of burns you see from fireworks. They're not first and second degree burns. These are deep tissue wounds that could go beyond the skin into fat and muscle. They are tragic and they are long-lasting effects. We'd ask everyone to please understand that. And knowing that fireworks inflict the greatest harm, particularly on young people, we're asking and encouraging families to leave fireworks alone. It is by far the safest way to enjoy the 4th of July holiday. Your firefighters would also like to remind you and everyone of the dangers that come along with barbecue grills and urge residents to exercise extreme caution when using them. Over the past 5 years, fire departments across this country have responded to an average of 10,200 home fires involving grills per year, including 4,500 structure fires that caused an annual average of 10 civilian deaths, 160 civilian deaths, civilian injuries, and 123 million in direct property damage. Not surprisingly, July is the peak month for this. For more on fireworks and grill safety, go to the New Orleans Fire Department website, nola.gov/NOFD, and please leave it to the experts and have a safe and therefore happy 4th of July season. Be safe, be healthy, and be hopeful.
Thank you, Chief. And it's always an honor to have with us the presence of the New Orleans City Council, and we have that in our president, Jason Williams.
Thank you, Mayor, for your leadership. You very quickly became a national leader in putting stiff protocols in place. And those stiff protocols, a lot of folks weren't quite ready for, but now you're starting to see governors and mayors copying that blueprint. New Orleans became a national leader. New Orleans became a national leader in COVID response. Because we had the highest rate of spread. I know everybody talks about New York having more numbers, they got more people. We're a smaller city. We had the highest rate of spread, and we crushed that curve like no other city. And we crushed that curve with limited resources, and we defied all of the odds in doing so. We did it in record time. But just because you are in the lead in a race does not mean you're going to win that race unless you keep your pace up. This race is in no way over. COVID-19 has gone nowhere. People are still getting sick, and people are still dying. The city, all cities, lose ground on big holidays because this is tough. I mean, this global pandemic has been tough on our physical health. It has been tough on our economic health, but it has been tough on our mental health. We don't talk enough about how this affects us, this isolation, people get sick, you go visit them. People have had to say goodbye at hospital doors to their loved ones to never see them again alive. This thing is crushing every extrovert in this world, and New Orleans is a town of extroverts. We celebrate like no other, and so isolating ourselves the way this disease forces us to do means it is going to affect us mentally. We're all fatigued. We're all tired. But when you're tired, that is a time when you have to dig the deepest. And what I'm talking about here is discipline. We need to be more disciplined than we've already been. Viruses don't know parish boundaries. So if you think just because our rate went down so quickly, when you go to a bar on Bourbon Street, you're just hanging out with New Orleanians, that's not the case. You need to realize that just because you don't get sick and you felt great, you could have been a carrier, you may be a carrier, and you can't let 4th of July dictate whether or not our kids can go back in school. So realize that the decisions you make, the places you go, when you walk into a room and you see how many people are there, you walk into a backyard and you see how many people are there, realize that your lack of discipline could mean an entire loss of a school year for our kids. Now, Dr. Lewis didn't say it, but the meal that some of our kids get at schools is the only and best meal they get all day. This is a big deal in the city of New Orleans. So please realize that your choices aren't just affecting you. This is not just about you. This is about your neighbor. This is about people whose names you don't even know. So let's not slow down, New Orleans. Let's dig just a little bit deeper. Let's think about our fellow person and realize that just a little bit more discipline, when we are all very tired of this, can go such a long way, and we can continue to be the national leader that we've become. People are calling the mayor and calling Dr. Vegno because they want to know how we did it. Let's maintain our vigilance and let's stay safe. And like Winston said, we want you to have a good 4th of July, but we want you to have many, many more good 4ths of July. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Councilman. And I want us to hear from our Director of Homeland Security, Colin Arnold. Looked like we had a little tsunami while we've been doing this press conference, so get us straight on that.
It's still going on, Madam Mayor. Good evening. As we can hear outside, I think pretty clearly there's a significant line of weather moving through here. Will be for the next probably 30 to 40 minutes. We lifted parking restrictions in the city. You can park on neutral grounds and sidewalks, but as usual, please don't block intersections, driveways, streetcar tracks, or bike lanes. We'll do that until further notice because, unfortunately, I come to bear the news that this is probably going to continue both, tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday, and really probably through Tuesday. So we will see this daytime heating with afternoon thunderstorms and lines of weather coming through like this, some of which could be severe, 1 to 2 inches generally, but as we know, Weather Service always tells us that can be doubled, so we could look at an incident where we could have 4 or 5 inches of rain within an hour or two, and we know that that's an issue. So please be careful, please be weather aware this weekend. If you'd like to get alerts, you can text your zip code to 888-777. You can also follow us on social media at NOLA Ready, and visit our webpage at ready.nola.gov. The other thing I'd like to just really quickly hit on as far as COVID-19 is, as we know this week, the city debuted or is taking eligibility registration for our emergency feeding program for COVID-19. This is a very novel and new concept that partnership with the federal government and the city, where we can be reimbursed by FEMA to feed people who are have food insecurity right now due to COVID-19. There's some criteria for eligibility: over 65, pre-existing medical conditions or medical special needs that require you to stay at home. If you've been directly affected by COVID as far as a positive test, or you're isolating or quarantining right now, this is for you. If you're homeless or if you're under 18, that's the eligibility criteria. One distinction I'll say that's very important is that if you're on any other federal programs such as SNAP, you're not eligible for this program, but you will be directed to some other programs with nonprofits that we've been doing throughout this time to assist with that. But we are under some federal regulations here, and there is a duplication of benefits issue that we have to address. All that being said, if you fit any of those criteria, please call 311. Phone lines are going to be open all weekend, including the holiday. You can go to NOLA.gov/311 if you're so inclined on the internet, but you can call 311 and get registered. The only thing I'll say is we've signed up over 1,000 people in about 3 days. There's capacity for more. Please call. Please be patient. And the other thing is, you'll probably have to get a call back, so please answer your phone. We have had some issues with that. There will be a call back for verification of some things, and so answer the phone. But it's a great program. We're looking to start it next week. And like I said, there's no one else in the country doing this type of program right now. We have a vendor who we've got settling a contract with right now that's going to engage 100 restaurants in the city, in every council district, in order to accomplish this. So we will feed people that need it, and we'll also help stimulate our restaurant economy.
Thank you so much, Colin. Thank you so much to all of our team assembled here, sharing this news and urging absolutely the compliance and public responsibility or personal responsibility of our residents and absolutely our visitors who are coming to the city of New Orleans. At this time, we'll take Q&A if there are any that you may have.
Madam Mayor, we'll go left to right, starting with the advocate.
Madam Mayor, just wanted to Lakeshore Drive, a regular gathering spot that's been shut down most weekends, will also be shut down this weekend.
That is one of our target areas. You want to touch on that, Chief?
We work hand in hand with the Orleans Levy Board, and I happen to live close to that, so I'll pass and do our personal checks with that. We also notify our 3rd district to make checks with that, but we work hand in hand with the Levy Board to ensure that the Lakeshore Drive is shut off and make sure that there are no gatherings out there. We shut off the vehicles, and we do recent passes there to make sure that there are not no gatherings being done there. And we work hand in hand with the Levy Board to ensure that that is being done.
It's a constant spotlight to buy you. That mounted division show up. Yes, ma'am.
I had one other question. Earlier today, Ashland Health released a study that showed that we're nowhere near the level of herd immunity to the virus that people thought we might be at. It's only 7% of people having any sort of antibody response. What should the public take away from that? What do you take away from it, Dr. Begley, as you're making decisions about how we
Deal.
Yeah, I've really got to hand it off. Sure did a great job with that study. We were involved supporting them with that, and it's disappointing in a way. So they found that their prevalence in Orleans and Jefferson Parish, people that had antibodies and so likely had been infected with COVID, was just a little under 8%. In order for us to get to herd immunity, which means that we could go back to normal life in the absence of a vaccine, we'd have to get closer to 70%. So that's a really long way to go. That just reinforces what we're saying. This is a marathon, and this is not a sprint. This is not going to be over anytime soon. The other thing it highlighted was, estimating a true estimate of the deadliness of this disease, because we look at the cases we know and the deaths that we know. The cases that they found, not surprisingly, for every one case we know about, we have a positive test. It's probably about 4 to 5 times people actually been infected. And the fatality rate is about 1.6% of everyone that we know about we don't. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that is 10 to 40 times deadlier than a bad flu year. So it is a lot. That is an incredibly serious rate. So the message really is, we are in this for a long time until we can get a vaccine or some, other treatment, and that this is a deadly disease.
Telemundo.
WWL.
One question for Madam Mayor. Can you talk a little bit about the video that you showed and just explain what that was and where that came from?
Well, the video that I showed was featuring a pop-up second line that happened on last Sunday. It was on Facebook, and someone sent it to me. And part of what was going on in the video was not only the second line, but a heightened level of disrespect of the New Orleans Police Department, our officers, but also people out not wearing face coverings, and also demonstrated the effectiveness of ethical policing is courageous, because it is. Being able to de-escalate issues that they encountered, or individuals that they encountered, but at the end of the day, the next day, being able to ensure accountability of those individuals. So it was something very disconcerting to me, because not only not adhering to the guidelines and mandates, public gatherings, no masks, no face coverings, children as well. What I saw was families that are directly aligned and associated with the New Orleans public schools, whose children will look to be in school come August. And in addition to that, it's just the downright disrespect that we do not have to have in our community, especially as we move through a pandemic and even civil unrest, where it speaks to equality and justice for all. So it was many things, that I took from that video. But at the end of the day, for me, this is about life and death. And the majority of the deaths that we've had in our community, out of the 534, 404 are Black. And the events that we saw were a majority African American as well. So it's just to double down these facts, but trying to plead to our community, our entire community, to let's do the right thing and practice personal responsibility. And you know what? When I see my officers out there, I call my chief, and our public safety team took a huge beating as it relates to COVID-19, meaning the positive cases. From NOPD, of course, having a loss there. EMS, majority of our techs positive. Fire, everybody was impacted. And we were able to make it through, right? So they were able to get well, the majority. We do not need our public safety team, again, being impacted by COVID-19 as it relates to their public health. Because we depend on them to keep us safe on so many different levels. And it's not just the New Orleans Police Department. We are a team. And they are people too, our entire public safety team.
WDSU.
I've got two. One is for Dr. Vegna.
Mm-hmm.
On the topic of the shortage of tests, any idea how long the shortage of tests may last?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're working. I should clarify, it's not actually a shortage of test kits. That was the issue, whenever it was, a couple of months ago, when we were initially struggling to get this. We have the swabs and the tubes to put them in. What we're looking at for some of the large machines that can run these tests and run 24/7, and I mean, these machines take up half a room. They're quite a piece of engineering. The reagent that is proprietary to that machine and the special tray to put all the swabs on seems to be in short supply. There are other similar issues with plastics, the plastic that makes test tubes, the plastic that makes pipettes, which are the little things that put the liquid in one place to the other. And so different partners that are running tests for us and for our community are experiencing different parts of the supply chains. again, we elevated this very, very quickly to the federal level, making the case that we can't go backwards on testing, especially now as we are starting to see our numbers creep up. And so we're hopeful that there will be solutions. We're working on it every day. I would hope to see it resolved, in the near future, but we're kind of at the mercy of these big companies right now.
Second one is for Dr. Lewis. Have you heard a lot of concern about parents, about children falling behind during this pandemic, and what is the concern for the going into the fall?
Yes, of course, as educators, we had to convert to distance learning for the last 9 weeks of the school year. And then also, as we anticipate the planning for the upcoming school year, we know that even though we're going to prioritize having as many in-class sessions as possible, we know that there will be a portion of the year where we will, because of upticks, probably will have 100% distance learning, which create challenges for all of us. One thing that I know that our new state superintendent is doing at the beginning of the school year, we'll be able to assess all of our students across the state of Louisiana to also be able to see what's their starting point. And it's my understanding that there will be an assessment at the end of the school year so we can actually track our students' growth. So I'm very encouraged by our educators. Each year, summertime, our students always regress. So now if you think of the month of March all the way through the summer, it's a longer regression period, but our teachers work each year to make sure that they understand what those regressions are and be able to provide interventions that support our students. So very challenging time. Very grateful for the educators that we have, because this is probably going to be the toughest job that most educators have done in their entire career. And so we're grateful that we have those educators on the front line that will be working with our students to catch them up as best as we can during this very, very difficult time.
Fox 8. WGNO.
Mayor, what would be your message to people maybe going to other parishes over the weekend and celebrating, and hopefully the other parishes do?
I received an email right before this press conference from a resident of Orleans where she said that there were multiple gatherings being planned outside of the parish, actually in Jefferson Parish, that they were not official events of particular schools. However, they were involving young children in our schools. She asked who did she need to reach out to in regards to that, and we're providing her with the information to the hotline in Jefferson Parish to properly report that to officials in Jefferson Parish. I will say that we don't want it in Jefferson Parish. I'm not Madam President. I'm Madam Mayor. But we're in this together. And just like we don't want that in Orleans Parish, I know she's made it very clear she doesn't welcome it in Jefferson either.
Any other questions?
So thank you all so much again for being here. I want to just take a personal point of personal privilege and give a little shout out to comedian Blowfish, the blind sensation of comedy for the city of New Orleans. He did a little skit, and I didn't even realize he was blind. And his mentors were the ones that acted it out. And so it was real funny. In times of what we're going through, being able to laugh, it is a little medicine. It speaks to the mental health impact, that it has, meaning just going through this pandemic. So I appreciate the ability to laugh, and even laugh at myself and laugh at the chief. It was pretty funny. And I will say that, and the woman who was featured on there was acting me. She kind of did me good. And if she's listening and seeing that I made a point not to shake my head as much. And my mask is on my cheek. So with that, thank you all so much.